Hey, I'm just a dude practicing, and this channel is the riveting real-time tale of a dude trying to get better at gypsy jazz guitar. So I upload every single guitar practice session from beginning to end, and I basically don't touch my guitar outside of what you see on the channel. So this is my monthly progress report for April 1st, and in these progress reports, I take a look at what I'm working on, how things are going, what's improved, challenges I'm dealing with, changes I've made. And the idea is to do this the first of every month, and just have a nice record of, hopefully progress. So the big question is, am I better than I was a month ago? So I put in about 55 hours of practice over the last 31 days. I did miss a couple of days because I had other obligations, but I would say yes. Surprisingly, practice seems to be working. I'll get into details in a little bit, but for now, the guitar continues to feel more comfortable. I've been focusing on things like thumb placement and finger flailing. So when certain fingers aren't pressing down on the strings, I don't want them to be shooting too far away from the fretboard. I've been trying to work on things like that. That all seems to be going pretty well. I haven't had any major leaps, major improvements, but there's a steady rise upwards, which is nice. So here's what I'm working on. I said this in the last video, but I'll just recap. So I'm working on the Van Hamert system. And the Van Hamert system is a system for soloing in jazz and gypsy jazz. Not really a system, but a way to learn how to solo in jazz and gypsy jazz by this guy, Christian Van Hamert. And I'm doing the second book. So here's how it works. There are 10 chapters. The first 7 chapters have sets of licks, and then the last 3 chapters have 3 solos composed mostly of licks from the first 7 chapters. So just to give you an example of how this works. So the first chapter is major licks. So you have 6 major licks, and the goal, is to play those 6 licks as a set in all 12 keys over a backing track at 170 beats per minute. So you do that. You record a video, you send it to Christian, and he checks it, he gives you notes, and you either, pass or you're told to do it again. Let's see. Yeah, so I'll get into how the last month has gone, because it segues nicely. I passed the 4th chapter, which is 2-5-1 licks, one of the 2-5-1 lick chapters, there are 3. I passed that one on March 10th. I passed chapter 5 on March 28th, so a few days ago. Chapter 5 took me over a month. It was like 5 or 6 weeks. So that gives you an idea of how difficult, well, at least for me, for my level, how difficult it is to actually play these 6 licks in 12 keys at 170 BPM. In the last month, I learned the 3 solos in chapters 8, 9, and 10. And I'm almost ready to send him the videos, but I haven't quite got them down yet. I can play them at speed, but there are a lot of mistakes, there are a lot of ghost notes. So I'm still working on that. In my last progress report video, I said my goals for the next month, March, were just to keep consistent, play 2 hours a day, finish the book. So I have kept consistent. I have played 2 hours a day, except for the days that I missed because I couldn't help it. So gold star to me for those things. I didn't finish the book, but that was fine because that was not really a hard goal because it's just not something you can control, right? You can't control how long it's going to take you to learn something. I started experimenting with vibrato, which I'll get into in a minute. I've been spending a lot of time on just picking technique, just mainly because it's in the book and it kind of forces you to, especially triplets, right? So I do a thing called gypsy picking, gypsy jazz picking, and one of the main features is that when you change strings, you always start with a downstroke. And if you're playing triplets at 170 or above, it can get pretty tricky to do downstrokes, 2 or more times in a row. So I've been spending a lot of time on those things. I've been dealing with a little frustration I mean, like I said, chapter 5 is only 6 licks, but it still took me, well over a month to get it. And even now, I got lucky. I finally had a good take that I was able to send to him. It's one of the benefits of recording every single moment you practice. You can just, finally take the good one and send it on over. Let's see. Oh, Dennis Chang came to town where I live. If you don't know Dennis Chang, he's one of the most prolific educators in the gypsy jazz world. He has this website called DC Music School, which has a ton of great content. So I got to hang out with him for a few hours. That was really cool. Show him around where I live. He had a jam the next day, which I did not go to because I can't solo yet. Right? That's what I'm trying to fix right now. And I was not ready to have my butt handed to me. So, all right, some of the changes I made, I've got notes here. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's why I'm looking off to the side. Here's some of the changes I made over the last month. I mentioned frustration. So this is kind of a change. I've got this new level of frustration that I'm dealing with. And it comes from not being able to do things as quickly as I want. All right. During my practice sessions and subsequently on the videos, there's lots of sighing. All right, there's lots of, oh, come on. All right, sometimes I lay back on the couch and sort of try to regroup for a minute. And I think it mainly comes from chapters 4 and 5 and maybe a little bit of chapter 6 that I'm working on now, because I've never done this in my guitar playing. I don't think I'd call it a career, but exploration of guitar. I've never spent so long on such a limited amount of material, like really trying to get it. In the past, and I've been playing with guitar for a very long time, I would have given up like the stuff that I'm doing now. If I spent a month on it, I probably would have given it up within a couple of days. So this is kind of new, right? To really dig into something and just force myself to get it to a level that I'm satisfied at. So it's kind of bringing up some negative emotions, right? The big one being frustration. And it just comes from unrealistic expectations, right? Like I expect it to be easy or take a certain amount of time, but like what are those expectations based on? Right? Like I've never done it before, so how can I expect that it's gonna, take 2 weeks or a couple of days? And I think that comes from a misunderstanding of what this craft, right, guitar playing, really takes in terms of time, effort, right, commitment. Right? I've got this stupid hunger for immediate results, and I'm constantly having to remind myself that my expectations are groundless, right? They're based on wishful thinking, and that the only way forward is to sit here on this couch with that guitar in my hands and just work at the edge of my abilities until the material clicks. So yeah, end of rant on frustration. So I'm dealing with a level of frustration that I'm not used to, because I've never really given this the effort it requires. Another change I made, I mentioned I started doing a vibrato exercise. That was probably earlier last month. I cannot do vibrato. Like I try and it's just like nothing happens. There's no fluctuation in pitch. So what I want is that big juicy half step vibrato that a lot of gypsy jazz players have, where they make the strings look like rubber bands. So I got advice from Christian Van Hamert. I watched Yosho Stefan and Remy Harris and a couple of other people on YouTube, just zooming into their hands, going frame by frame, just to try to see the mechanics of how they're doing it, how they're doing the motion. So I started copying that. I was doing about 10 minutes a day at the beginning of every session. I haven't done it in a week or so, maybe longer, because it's painful and my skin started peeling away from my fingernail, which really makes it hard to practice, for the next hour and 50 minutes after that. So I'm taking a break until I regenerate. So apparently I can expect vibrato to take about 6 months to develop with daily practice. That's according to Christian Van Hamert. I said this last time too, but I'm in his world right now. So when I do these progress reports, I'm sure I'll be referring to him many, many times. But yeah, it's very painful. It's very slow going, but I started experimenting with vibrato. Another change is I'm not using Airpods as much. For most of my practice, I was listening to backing tracks and metronomes in my Airpods. But the problem I found is that when I took them out and I just had the backing track coming from my computer speakers, it felt weird to play. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. Like it made it more difficult to like follow along or to really hear what was happening. So I figured, you know what, it's probably not a good habit to get into, to get used to things being right inside of your ears, the sound just filling your head entirely. So I decided not to use them unless I'm watching one of the instructional videos, because it's paid content and it's probably not cool if I just have it for free on a YouTube video. So so unless I'm watching one of his videos or someone else's videos, I've got my backing track or my metronome just coming out of the speakers now, which is a bit of a change. Another ear-related change. So I've started using an earplug in my right ear when I practice. Even with the cork and the towel inside, kind of microfiber towel to kind of dampen the noise a bit, it's still, the guitar is really piercing. And that's probably because of gypsy picking, because you get this, you're trying to go for this really distinct, like loud pop every time you stroke. And I tend to lean in, so I'm getting that full blast right into my ear. And I figure sometimes it's kind of jarring. So I'm assuming that's not good, right? For the hair cells. I know loud noises can kill those, and you kill enough of them and then you can't hear. So I've been using just an earplug on one side. I can still hear just fine, but it just kind of tones it down a bit. So hopefully, a little protection for the eardrum. Another change I made in the last month, I decided not to increase my practice time. So in the last progress report, I said I would like to start slowly adding a few minutes, maybe get to 2.5 hours or so. I decided to stick with 2 hours and not try to push myself. It's still a new habit, this whole 2-hour thing. It's probably only 2 months, 2.5 months of me doing, 2 hours a day. I'm pretty much toast at the end of it. There have been a couple of days where I thought, I'll try to do an extra 15, 20 today. And when I get to the 2 hour, 3-minute mark, 5-minute mark, I'm like, no, I'm done for the day. And rather than kind of keep, having this goal or this desire to do more, which can really, I don't know, not frustrate me, but it can kind of get me down if I don't eventually do it, right? If I'm like, I should do 2.5 hours. I should do 2.5 hours, and then I never do it. It starts to make me feel bad. So I decided, what's easier? Stop having the goal. So I'm like, I'm satisfied with 2 hours. Let's just stick with that. Maybe later, when this habit is really baked in, maybe 6 months or, a year from now, then I'll toy with the idea of increasing the practice time. There's another thing. This isn't a change, but here's a question I've had. Like, why don't I split my practices into 2 sessions, right? Why do something as difficult as a solid 2-hour block? You could do an hour in the morning or an hour in the evening or an hour and a half or whatever. And the reason is really practical. There's one reason. A 2-hour video on this GoPro is like 40 gigs. So if I have to let's say I do 2 practice sessions, if I have to download both files, all right, let's say I do an hour and an hour, I do 20 gigs, I've got to get those on my computer, put them in Final Cut, stick them together, export that video, upload that massive file to YouTube. If my computer doesn't melt, that's probably like a 24-hour process. And I told myself when I started this channel that I'm only going to do it if it doesn't take away from practice time. And right now, the way it works, it takes me like 2 minutes to get one of these on YouTube, at least the work I have to do. Click a couple of things, sends it automatically. So yeah, so that's why I don't split the practice session into two, my practices into 2 sessions. It's just practical. All right, I am rambling. Another change I made, I am doing chapters on all videos now. So if you look on any of the recent videos, you can see the different chapters, like exactly what I'm working on. And really, that's more for me than anyone else. It just makes it easier for me to search, because sometimes I like to go back and say, you know, look at an early practice of chapter 5, right? And if I don't have the chapters, like, it takes me forever to find them. I can't search. You know, if I pull up a video, I got to click through the whole 2 hours and, you know, see if I recognize some of the licks from chapter 5. And, you know, it makes it easier for anyone else who wants to see like exactly what I'm working on, or if they look at the chapter list and something piques their interest, they can just go ahead and click on it on the timestamp. And also, as a side benefit, I find that when I have to make the chapters, it's a nice review of the practice session. I get a chance to kind of go through and listen to how things sound from an outside perspective, which I really wouldn't do otherwise. Let's see, another change. Not really a change, more continuation. So in the last progress report, I said that I started community posts, and I've continued that. In the community tab on my YouTube channel, I have started taking comments, I screenshot them, and I put them onto the community tab. I respond to every comment. So almost all of them, like, unless they're like a thumbs up or, you know, anything with a little bit of substance gets put into the community tab as a screenshot. I'm really into it. I think there's something satisfying about having them all in one place. So if you're curious what other people have to say about this dude's practice sessions, check out the community tab. I think this is the final change is not something I'm starting yet, but I've been thinking about making another type of content on the channel. And this is something I've been thinking about since the first week I started. Basically, I want to talk about relevant things, the things relevant to practice, right? From my perspective as an amateur. So I'll give you some examples. Things like worst advice I ever got. How I keep from crumbling in despair while practicing, right? That's a legit issue. Sporadic and fun practice versus consistent and disciplined practice. Don't quit your guitar in the first 3 months. It was a conversation I've had many times with people. Seeking the perfect learning resource versus just using what you have available. What to practice when there are too many things to work on. Practicing boring exercises versus playing, you know, real music. I've had a few comments on this. Maybe a video on how practice teaches humility. Again, from my perspective. Practicing what you want versus practicing what you should. So I don't know. There are a lot of advice channels already by seasoned professionals on YouTube. I do like the purity of the channel as it is, right? Just practice sessions in these progress reports. But I do think I might have something to add to the conversation, even though, again, I'm not nearly as good as enough a guitar to throw around advice. So it wouldn't be advice. It would just be my thoughts on, you know, what I'm doing and the topic I'm speaking about. So we'll see. If anyone wants to encourage me, you know, one way or the other, let me know. Okay. Wow, this one is running long. Just about done. Where I want to be a month from now. I hope to still be practicing 2 hours a day. I hope to finish the book, the Van Hammer System Book 2, this week. I'm pretty close, so we'll see. And then the real work comes in. So once the book is done in the sense that you can physically play all these licks and solos at speed, you know, pretty cleanly, then you got to start taking the material and applying it to creating your own solos, right? or I guess kind of my own solos. I mean, they're all licks from the book, but you know, I start to mix and match how I want them to sound. And I'm expecting that it's going to be super difficult. Because right now it's just, I learn the licks as they are. You know, I have my homework is clear, physically play them, get them up to speed, don't make too many mistakes. Like it's all very cut and dry. But when I start, again, hopefully, you know, in a week or so, having to take these lines, break them apart, understand where they work, why they work where they work, understand how to connect them, you know, figuring out positions. Like, you know, if I play the first part of a lick over 2 bars of C, and then I get like an E7, well, I need to see, well, here's where I've stopped. What E7 stuff is available. I have to remember that. You know, kind of figure out how to transition from one thing to the other. Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot more thinking, a lot more decoding, a lot of kind of puzzling over the material. So I'm excited, but I also know it's not going to be as easy as what I've been doing. But that's why I wanted to finish the book first, right? I want to get the bulk of the physical work out of the way so I can focus exclusively on application of the material. I don't want to be thinking about picking patterns. Right? I don't want to be struggling to remember how to play a lick while also trying to figure out how to connect it to another lick I barely know. Right? That's why I decided do the book first, right? Get it all in there, in the fingers, in the brain, and then start manipulating it as I need to. So hopefully by the next progress report, I'm starting to get my feet wet with actual soloing, right? Taking these licks and playing them where I want to play them, not how they've been, you know, prearranged or pre-written out for me. I want to be able to put on backing tracks, you know, have something to play. So in the next month, I want to start that process. Potential challenge. Here's a potential challenge that I think I'm going to have in April. Once I finish this book, I'm going to want to jump into the third book of the Van Hamert system, which is 1930s vocabulary. That stuff sounds awesome, right? It sounds really, really cool. And I love going from not knowing a lick, right? The picking, the notes, right? Not even being able to make sense of it, to being able to play it in all 12 keys at speed. Like, it's such a good feeling. And I know that once I get my hands on that book, I'm going to be tempted to just start learning that stuff, you know, note for note, rote. So what I really need to do, though, is apply the book 2 material instead of trying to add more licks to the arsenal, try to make use of the ones I already have. So that is going to be the big challenge of next month. So we'll see how that goes. All right, that's it. This was a really long one. There was a lot of rambling. If you have any questions or comments, get in touch. I will put your comment in the community tab. And that's it. All right. See you later. See you tomorrow when I practice.